We interrupt our normal program. Normal broadcasting will now be discontinued for an indefinite period.
This station will continue to stay on the air throughout the alert period to bring you authentic information. Telephone service to your home may be cut off. If you can plug in your radio in the basement, take it with you. Use a portable radio set if you have one.
Repeaters play an important role in amateur radio by extending the range of communications. However, the phenomenon of repeater jamming, which is a deliberate interference with these systems, poses significant challenges to those tasked with running and maintaining them. Jamming repeaters can occur for various reasons, ranging from mischievous pranks to more malicious intents. Different styles of jamming can involve playing music, making random noises, or transmitting random or offensive content. In some cases, it might be motivated by personal grudges against specific individuals or groups, or amateur radio clubs. Jamming can also be used as a form of protest, particularly in regions experiencing political or social unrest. For those on the receiving end of jamming, the consequences can vary, but in general, it disrupts the normal flow of communication, making it pretty difficult for radio operators to exchange information, and that can be particularly problematic during emergencies when reliable communication is crucial. Persistent jamming can also lead to frustration among radio operators and might even cause some to disengage from amateur radio altogether. Addressing jamming often requires significant time and resources, including tracking down the source of the interference, as well as implementing countermeasures. To counter jamming, radio operators use various strategies and technologies. One method for locating jamming sources is radio direction finding, which involves using specific equipment to triangulate the position of the interfering signal. In more severe cases, legal action might be taken against individuals responsible for jamming, and that usually involves reporting the incident to regulatory authorities like the FCC. Although I have heard several accounts of jamming incidents from other radio operators who have made reports, and in some cases even successfully located the person doing the jamming, but unfortunately that reporting brought about little action. Jamming is an effective way to disrupt communications, and in a lot of cases, all that's required is a transmitter tuned to the repeater's frequency, and then to produce enough power to override signals attempting to reach the repeater. In researching this topic, there's a few methods of jamming that I came across, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but an example that I came across was something called spot jamming, and that consists of concentrating power towards a given frequency. Also, barrage jamming, and that entails spreading power over several frequencies at the same time. One of the most common methods I read about is the use of audio samples. And so, in that scenario, it could include everything from music, applause, laughter, screams, and I guess any number of recorded speech categories. One of the more subtle ways of using audio samples might include random noise clips. And so the difficulty with detecting this type of jamming is the seemingly random audio might be mistaken for either atmospheric interference or possibly the repeater picking up unintentional interference from other systems. A famous example of repeater jamming using recorded speech and sounds as a communications disruptor that I came across in my research was the Ellsbury repeater bomb incident. And this event took place in the early 1990s in Ellsbury, England, and it involved a group of individuals who created a device that inadvertently caused some controversy within the amateur radio community.
Amateur radio enthusiasts say saboteurs who've been jamming the airways must be stopped before someone is killed. It follows the discovery of a jamming device which had been booby-trapped with explosives.
Hidden by a tree on an island in the middle of nowhere, a crude radio device, booby-trapped with explosives. The man who discovered it was cautious about his find. Luckily for him, it failed to go off.
I unearthed topsoil and found a white box. And he said, be a bit careful. So I got a long stick and I just poked the whole lot out and had a look in the bottom of the hole. And in the bottom of the hole, I said, well, I think it's a sort of a booby trap thing. It's a sort of a peg with a little battery on it and that little flare thing on the bottom.
It's believed there's at least one other device planted by an anti-radio ham group in the area. The public are warned not to tamper with anything that looks suspicious and to contact the police immediately.
So the name in the reporting is a little bit misleading because it wasn't an actual explosive device, but rather a piece of equipment designed to interfere with the Ellsbury repeater as a prank. And the device was reported to have been able to play a variety of different pieces of music and other samples of recorded speech, as well as the ability to randomize the audio clips. Eventually, the device was located by the local amateur radio club and they confiscated it. After the first device was taken, its creators built a new version, but this time they apparently included a mechanism intended to deter tampering. And it's believed that the anti tampering portion of the device was either a flare or some kind of smoke bomb. The second device was hidden on an island in a lake, but it was eventually found. However, this time the amateur radio club involved the police, which apparently led to sending the Bob squad to defuse the device. The involvement of the bomb squad and the subsequent media coverage blew the incident out of proportion. And the device was really just intended as a prank, but at that point it was now seen as a serious threat. And the creators of the Ellsbury repeater bomb, they eventually, I guess, had to deal with the unintended consequences of their actions. And the incident became kind of a cautionary tale within the amateur radio community for when pranks go too far. So what are some ways to counter jamming? I would say in the short term, continue to operate, because in many instances, what seems to happen is followed by a period of jamming, the interference will cease for a short listening period. And during this time, whoever's doing the jamming, they're listening to ascertain if their efforts are effective in disrupting communications. If regular communications are persisting, then that's an indication the jamming efforts aren't achieving the desired result. However, if repeater participants begin discussing on air how disruptive the jamming is or the possibility of ceasing repeater operations, then the jammer is going to have confirmation at that point that their efforts are effective. So, two initial steps are to not acknowledge on air the effectiveness of the jamming, and secondly, continue normal operations. And those instructions should be sent to all the repeater participants through another way, such as email if you've already got a member list, or perhaps you could disseminate that information on a group chat or something. But after recognizing that jamming has occurred and advising the repeater community of the situation, the next step is to find the location that the jamming's coming from. One way to locate the source of the interference is using equipment like the Kraken SDR, or perhaps through traditional radio direction finding methods such as fox hunting, which is a popular activity among amateur radio operators. And it combines technical skills, problem solving, a little bit of outdoor adventure, and that seems to make for a favorite pastime for many hams. From a high level, fox hunting entails hams hiding a radio transmitter, which is the fox in this scenario, and the participants begin attempting to track down the fox, which is typically hidden in a challenging location. And the goal is to find the transmitter as quickly as possible. And sometimes this activity has a set time limit. But fox hunters will use a variety of equipment for this activity, including directional antennas. So Yagi or loop antennas assist with determining the direction of the transmission, and by rotating the antenna and noting the direction of the strongest signal, participants can then begin to triangulate the fox's location. And as they get a little bit closer to the fox, the signal strength can become very strong. So attenuators can be used to reduce the signal strength, making it a little bit easier to pinpoint the location. But once you think you're pretty close to the source of the jamming device, you can use several methods to get a bearing on the signal. One of those would be body blocking. So this is where you hold a handheld close to your body and you rotate until your body blocks the signal. And that can help you figure out the direction where the signal's coming from. You can also adjust your handheld squelch level starting from lowest to highest to attenuate the signal. And also, if you think you're close to the signal, another method is to take the antenna off of the handheld and then rotate until you begin picking up the signal. So, how this plays out is before the hunt begins, the fox is hidden in a predetermined area, and then the transmitter is activated, and then its frequency is announced to the fox hunters. The hunters start by detecting the fox's signal from a distance using their directional antennas, as well as taking multiple readings from different locations, and then they can begin to work to triangulate the fox's position, and that might involve plotting directions on a map to find intersection points. As they get a little bit closer to the fox, they begin using the attenuation methods I mentioned to close in on the signal. And this phase often involves a lot of walking and careful listening. And then the hunt ends when a hunter physically locates the fox transmitter. But the skills developed in fox hunting can be invaluable in locating the source of intentional jamming. And it's also a unique and interesting aspect of amateur radio because it challenges participants to use their skills and ingenuity. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching.